No one came for my son's surgery. 3 days later, my mom texted, "Need $10,000 for your sister's wedding gown." I replied with $1 saying, "Buy a veil." Then I locked all their accounts. The bank manager phoned me the next morning. "Can you believe your own family would abandon you in your darkest hour, then turn around and demand $10,000 for a wedding dress?" That's what happened to me, and it sparked a battle I never saw coming. Hi, I'm Carolyn, a 34-year-old single mom with a demanding career in finance. My whole world revolves around my incredible 7-year-old son, Dylan. Just last week, everything changed. Dylan, my sweet boy, suddenly needed emergency appendix surgery. I was terrified. My heart pounded as I called my parents, my sister, anyone in my family who could be there, who could offer some comfort through such a terrifying time. But you know what? Not a single person showed up. Not one. I was completely alone in that hospital, clinging to my son, praying he'd be okay. I've always been the responsible one, the one everyone leans on, especially for money. So, to be utterly abandoned like that, it was a gut punch. But then, just 3 days later, while I was still reeling from the trauma, I got a text message that truly changed everything. And before I dive into how my family betrayed me in the most shocking way, then had the audacity to demand $10,000, stick around. Because this isn't just my story, it's a testament to finding your voice when your back's against the wall. To truly understand how things reach this unbelievable breaking point, we need to go back, way back to where it all began. I grew up in a comfortable, middle-class home in suburban Chicago, with my parents, Martha and Frank, and my younger sister, Vanessa. But even from my earliest memories, there was this unspoken rule, this invisible hierarchy in our house. Vanessa, she was the golden child. And me, I was the responsible one. Our old childhood photos tell the whole story, honestly. You'd see Vanessa, sparkling in her dance recital costumes, our parents absolutely beaming. Vanessa, surrounded by mountains of Christmas gifts. Vanessa, getting celebrated for every tiny thing. Meanwhile, I was just the practical daughter. The reliable one. The one who never caused any trouble. I learned pretty fast that if I wanted anything, I had to take care of it myself. By 16, I was already working at the local grocery store, pulling shifts after school and all weekend. Not because we needed the money, mind you, my family was perfectly comfortable. But my parents made it crystal clear. My wants, my needs, they were my responsibility. Then came college applications. I remember holding that acceptance letter from Northwestern, my dream school, sitting at our kitchen table. My parents, though, exchanged these nervous glances. Not of pride, but about the tuition. "We just don't have that kind of money set aside for you, Carolyn," my mother said, stirring her coffee, her voice flat. "We always figured you'd get scholarships, or maybe go somewhere less expensive." What she didn't say, but what I always knew in my gut, was that they were saving every penny for Vanessa, who was 2 years younger. So, I took out student loans, worked a grueling 30 hours a week all through college, and eventually graduated with my business degree. Vanessa? Oh, she attended 3 different universities over 6 years, changing her major constantly, with my parents happily footing every single bill. My first job after graduation was as a bank teller. I was 22, so incredibly eager to build my career, to chip away at those crushing student loans. I rented a tiny studio apartment, packed my own lunch every single day. I was so careful with my money. I remember calling my parents, so excited to share the news about my first promotion. I was going to be a personal banking associate, only to have the conversation cut abruptly short. Why? Because they were busy helping Vanessa move into another new apartment after she dropped out of college again. At 25, I met Brian. He was charming, ambitious, and for the first time, I felt like someone truly appreciated my practical, grounded nature. We married quickly, just 8 months later, in a small, intimate ceremony. Of course, my parents still complained it was too modest. We always imagined giving one of our daughters a proper wedding, my mother's side, even though they didn't contribute a single cent to the costs. Brian and I, we both worked hard. Within 2 years, I was pregnant with Dylan. And in a strange twist of fate, during my pregnancy, I landed my biggest promotion yet, financial advisor at one of Chicago's most prestigious firms. Brian seemed supportive at first, but after Dylan was born, everything shifted. He started working later and later, grew irritated by the baby's cries, and eventually he admitted it. He just wasn't ready for fatherhood. By the time Dylan was 2, our divorce was finalized. Brian, to his credit, pays his child support on time, but his involvement in Dylan's life is minimal. Every other weekend quickly turned into once a month, then just occasional holidays. I never badmouth him to Dylan, but the harsh reality is, I'm essentially raising our son completely alone. Dylan is the sweetest, most thoughtful little boy. He's curious, resilient, especially considering his health challenges. He was born with a minor heart murmur that needs regular checkups, and he's always been prone to respiratory infections. The medical bills, let me tell you, have been substantial. But I've built a strong career, and I can provide for him. What I can't give him, though, an extended family that actually, genuinely cares. Over the years, a truly disturbing pattern emerged with my parents and Vanessa. They rarely called to check in on us, or visited, unless they needed something. And increasingly, that something was money. First, it was my parents. They needed help refinancing their home. Why? Because they'd taken out a second mortgage to pay for Vanessa's latest graduate school attempt, which, surprise, she abandoned after just one semester. I stepped in. I helped them secure a better rate, and I covered all the closing costs. That was $5,000 I'd been meticulously saving for Dylan's first real family vacation. Then came Vanessa's credit card debt, a staggering $12,000. She'd racked it up buying designer clothes, taking lavish weekend trips with friends. My parents called me in a full-blown panic, saying Vanessa was crying herself to sleep every night, terrified of debt collectors. So what did I do? I created a payment plan, and I covered the first 4 months of payments just to get her back on track. Each time, I'd get these, well, they felt like abusive thanks and empty promises that things would be different. And each time, months would pass in complete silence until the next crisis, the next demand, emerged. But here's the kicker. When I try to share Dylan's school achievements, or, God forbid, mention his health concerns, I'd get these distracted, almost annoyed responses. Or they'd quickly change the subject. Your sister is just going through a difficult time right now. My mother would sigh whenever I dared to express my frustration at our completely one-sided relationship. Family helps family, Carolyn. You're just better with money. It's always come easy to you. Easy. Nothing about my financial stability came easy. I worked 60-hour weeks, often while running on fumes, raising a child alone. I budgeted every single dollar like my life depended on it. I sacrificed vacations, new clothes, dinners out, all to build some semblance of security for Dylan and myself. But in my family's narrative, I was just lucky, or naturally good with money, as if my success had simply fallen from the sky, not earned through years of grueling discipline and sheer hard work. This was the family dynamic I had, tragically, come to accept. The responsible daughter, always expected to rescue everyone else, while receiving barely any emotional support in return. I had tried to set some boundaries over the years, little ones, but honestly, nothing truly prepared me for what happened right after Dylan's surgery. Last Wednesday started like any other school day. I was in the kitchen, making Dylan's lunch, turkey sandwich, crusts cut off, apple slices, his favorite small cookie, when he walked in, clutching his stomach. "Mommy, my tummy really hurts," he whimpered, his face pale, pinched with pain. My heart sank. At first, I thought, maybe a stomach bug? There'd been one going around his second-grade class. I felt his forehead, no fever. Gave him some water. But within 20 excruciating minutes, he was curled up on the couch, openly crying, telling me the pain was just getting worse, now concentrated sharply on his right side. Alarm bells. They screamed in my head. Right side. Abdominal pain. Appendicitis. I didn't hesitate. I called my boss, letting her know I had a real family emergency, scooped up Dylan, and drove straight to the ER. The triage nurse took one look at Dylan's pale face and rushed us back immediately. Within the hour, a doctor confirmed my deepest fears, acute appendicitis. Dylan needed emergency surgery. Now. Before it ruptured. We need to operate within the next 2 hours. Dr. Bennett, the surgeon, explained. The good news is this is common, but he'll need to stay for at least 2 days to monitor for infection. As I prepped my tiny, brave boy for pre-op testing, I stumbled into the hallway, my hand shaking so violently I could barely hold my phone. I dialed my mother. Mom, I choked out when she answered. Dylan has appendicitis. We're at Memorial Hospital. They're prepping him for emergency surgery right now. I'm so scared. Can you and Dad please come? There was a pause, a beat of silence. Then, oh honey, today I have my standing hair appointment at 11, and your father was going to clean the gutters. I closed my eyes, fighting for breath. A hair appointment? Gutters? Mom, I pleaded, your grandson is having emergency surgery. The hair appointment can wait. Well, let me talk to your father and see what we can do, she said, her voice dripping with annoyance, sounding so incredibly put out. What time is the surgery? They said within the next 2 hours. Please hurry. I begged. We'll see what we can do, Caroline. Don't be so dramatic. Appendectomies are routine these days. Routine. My own son. I ended the call, my mind numb, and immediately dialed Vanessa. Voicemail. I sent a frantic text, explaining the situation, begging her to come. Then, I forced a calm expression onto my face, one I absolutely didn't feel, and went back to Dylan's side. The next few hours were a blur of terror. Dylan was wheeled away to surgery, and I was directed to a vast, lonely waiting area. I sat there, watching other families. Families supporting each other, groups of 2, 3 for people. Husbands comforting wives, grandparents distracting siblings with games and snacks. And there I was utterly alone, checking my phone every 5 minutes, my heart pounding with every notification sound, just praying for some response from my family. After an agonizing hour, my mother finally texted, "Let us know when he is out of surgery. Your father has a backache today, so driving would be difficult." Nothing. Not a single word from Vanessa. A kind nurse, Janet, noticed me. Alone. She brought me a cup of coffee. "Is someone coming to sit with you, honey?" she asked gently. I just shook my head, not trusting myself to speak without breaking down completely. "Well, I'll check on you when I can," she promised, patting my shoulder. "The surgical team here is excellent. Your little boy is in good hands." 2 hours later, Dr. Bennett found me. "The surgery went perfectly," he said with a reassuring smile. "We caught it before it ruptured. Dylan is in recovery now. You can see him in about 20 minutes. The relief that washed over me was a tidal wave. I thanked him profusely, tears streaming down my face, then immediately texted my parents and Vanessa with the good news. My mother responded with a thumbs-up emoji. My father sent, "Great news? Tell the little guy we love him." Vanessa finally responded an hour later, "Glad he is okay." Not a single one of them asked if I needed anything, or if they could visit. Dylan was groggy when I first saw him in recovery. His small body, hooked up to all those tubes and monitors, looked so vulnerable. When his eyes fluttered open and he weakly whispered, "Mommy," I nearly broke down right there. "I'm right here, sweetheart," I assured him, holding his tiny hand. "The doctor fixed your tummy. You were so brave." He looked around the room, his eyes searching. "Is Grandma here? Or Grandpa?" I swallowed hard. This broke me. "Not right now, buddy. They sent their love, though. They're so proud of how brave you've been." "Will they come tomorrow?" he asked, before drifting back to sleep. "Maybe," I whispered, but I already knew the answer. The next 2 days were utterly exhausting. I slept in a hospital recliner next to Dylan's bed, waking with every stir. During his naps, I worked remotely on my laptop, frantically trying to keep up with urgent client matters. The hospital Wi-Fi was abysmal, and I had to step into the hallway for calls, constantly worrying about being away from Dylan, even for 15 minutes. I sent regular updates to my family, photos of Dylan's slow recovery. Their responses grew even briefer. My mother actually asked if I'd be able to join them for Sunday dinner that weekend. Vanessa sent a meme about hospitals. My father, no response at all. No one visited. No flowers arrived. No offers to bring food, or to sit with Dylan so I could finally shower or get some fresh air. By Friday afternoon, when Dylan was finally discharged, my resentment had hardened. It was something cold, something solid, lodged deep in my chest. As I carefully helped my son into the car, so mindful of his incision site, I made a silent, unshakable promise to myself. Something would have to change. Back home, I gently settled Dylan on the couch with his favorite stuffed dinosaur in a Disney movie. I ordered pizza for dinner, a rare, special treat, and sat beside him, stroking his hair as he drifted in and out of sleep, still so weak from the surgery and medication. During a quiet moment, his little voice, barely a whisper, broke the silence. "Mommy," he asked, his eyes wide, "are Grandma and Grandpa mad at me?" My heart didn't just break, it shattered into a million pieces. "No, sweetie," I managed, my voice thick with unshed tears. "Why would you ever think that?" "Because they didn't come see me in the hospital," he said, his bottom lip trembling just a little. Mason's grandparents brought him a teddy bear when he broke his arm. I took a deep, shuddering breath. "Grandma and Grandpa love you very much," I tried to reassure him. "They've just been very busy. It's not your fault at all." He seemed to accept it on the surface, but I saw it. The flicker of hurt, the deep sadness in his innocent eyes. At 7 years old, my son was already learning a truly painful lesson about our family's twisted priorities. That night, after Dylan was finally asleep in his own bed, I let myself break. I allowed myself to cry for the first time since this whole nightmare began. I cried for my brave, sweet son, who deserved so much more support than he received. I cried for myself for always giving, always pouring myself out, and so rarely receiving anything in return. And beneath all that crushing sadness, there was a simmering, dangerous anger. An anger that, I knew, would soon boil over in ways my family never ever expected. Sunday morning arrived, bright and deceptively clear. Dylan was recovering, thankfully, moving more comfortably, and even, joy of joys, asking for pancakes for breakfast. His appetite returning. That was the best sign I could ask for. As I mixed the batter, my phone chimed. A text. From my mother. "How is Dylan feeling?" It was the first time she'd initiated contact since before his surgery. I texted back, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Much better, thanks. Eating well today and moving around more easily." I set the phone down, pouring batter onto the griddle. Before the first pancake even started to bubble, my phone chimed again. I glanced at the screen and nearly dropped the spatula. The message read, "Good to hear. Listen, we need to talk about something important. Vanessa is engaged. Tyler proposed last night. She needs $10,000 for her dream wedding dress. Vera Wong. Once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The boutique is holding it, but needs deposit by tomorrow. Can you transfer the money today? Family helps family." I just stared at that message, reading it 3 times, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. My son had just had emergency surgery. Emergency surgery. Not one person from my family had bothered to visit or offered any meaningful support. And now, 3 days later, they wanted $10,000 for a wedding dress. I flipped the pancake, which had, of course, burned on one side, and tried desperately to compose myself before responding. My first instinct, to fire back an absolutely furious message. But Dylan was right there, sitting at the kitchen island, watching me with those curious, hopeful eyes. "Is that Grandma?" he asked. "Yes, buddy," I said, the lie tasting like ash in my mouth. "She says hi. Your pancake is almost ready." I couldn't respond immediately. I served Dylan his breakfast, made sure he took his medication, and settled him in the living room with his Legos. Then, I returned to my phone, which had already accumulated 3 more messages. One from Mom. "Did you see my text about Vanessa's dress? They need an answer today." One from Dad. "Your mother told you about the dress. Vanessa found the one. $10,000. I know it sounds like a lot, but this is her special day. Call us." And then Mom again. "The boutique closes at 5 today. You are the only one with money to spare. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." I sank into the kitchen chair, a bone-chilling cold spreading through my chest. Money to spare. Spare. After paying thousands in medical bills that my insurance didn't fully cover, after taking unpaid time off work to care for my son, my phone rang. It was my father. "Carolyn," he said, No preamble, just straight to it. Did you get your mother's messages about the dress? I did, I replied, carefully, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm a little surprised by the timing. What does timing have to do with anything? He scoffed. Your sister is getting married. Tyler comes from money, and they're expecting a certain level of wedding. The dress is non-negotiable. Dad, I said, my voice rising slightly. Dylan just had surgery. I've been dealing with that alone. I have medical bills, I've missed work. $10,000 for a dress is not something I can just pull out of thin air. He scoffed again. You work in finance. We know you make good money. This is not the time to be selfish. Vanessa never asks you for anything. I nearly choked on that blatant, unbelievable lie. Dad, she has never once called to check on Dylan. Not once during his entire hospital stay. Did she even tell you he had surgery? We've all been busy. Tyler's parents are planning an engagement party, and there's been a lot to coordinate. This dress is a limited opportunity. Vanessa tried it on yesterday, and it's perfect. She deserves this. The conversation dragged on, a vicious cycle for several minutes. My father dismissed every single concern I raised, repeatedly hammering home the same points. Family obligation. Vanessa's once-in-a-lifetime event. After I hung up, exhausted, my mother called. Then another text arrived, this one with photos. It was Vanessa, in what I assumed was the dress. A massive, ostentatious ball gown, dripping with intricate beading in a cathedral train. It looked like something from a Disney movie, completely impractical, utterly over the top. Then came the text that shattered everything. Thanks. In advances. You are the best. Cannot wait for you to see me walk down the aisle in this. Tyler's family is so impressed with it. I need your banking details to give to the boutique for the deposit. Love you. Not a single word about Dylan. Not even a pretense of concern for her nephew, who had just undergone emergency surgery. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the phone, and something inside me just shifted. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was this chilling, absolute clarity. I had been used by my family for years, treated as nothing more than a convenient ATM, and I had allowed it to happen. But even worse, I had inadvertently taught Dylan, by my own example, that this was what family relationships should look like. One-sided, exploitative, completely devoid of genuine care. As a financial advisor, I'd counseled countless clients about financial boundaries. I'd even recognized signs of financial abuse in their relationships. Yet, I had utterly failed to apply those same standards to my own family. I had enabled their behavior time and again, always, foolishly, hoping that the next time would be different. Looking at my financial situation objectively, I was comfortable, yes, but not wealthy. I had a mortgage on a modest 3-bedroom home. I'd established a college fund for Dylan that was growing steadily, but it still needed years of contributions. My emergency fund? This surgery had already made a significant dent in it, and my retirement savings were on track, but certainly not excessive. The $10,000 they were demanding? That would mean postponing necessary repairs to my home, cutting back on Dylan's extracurricular activities, or even, God forbid, withdrawing from my own retirement savings. All for a dress that would be worn once. For a sister who couldn't be bothered to visit, her nephew in the hospital, or even ask meaningfully about his recovery. As these thoughts crystallized, a final text popped up from my mother. We know this is a big ask, but remember all we have done for you over the years. Family supports each other. Your sister would do the same for you. That was it. That was the absolute last straw. In that moment, I knew exactly what I needed to do. That afternoon, while Dylan thankfully napped, I sat down at my desk, my laptop feeling heavy beneath my fingers. As a financial advisor, I knew how to handle complex situations strategically. But today, despite my training, I was swimming in a sea of emotions. First, I started by reviewing my own accounts, especially those tangled up with my family. Years ago, after my father had a brief health scare, I'd created a joint emergency account with my parents. I put in $5,000 initially, then added small amounts over time, thinking it would be there for a genuine crisis. The account now held just over $8,000. Out of morbid curiosity, I checked the transaction history. What I found next stunned me. My jaw actually dropped. There were dozens of small withdrawals over the past year. 200 here, 300 there. None of which had ever been discussed with me. The most recent withdrawal, just last week, while Dylan was literally fighting for his life in the hospital. $600. The memo line? Advance for V-dress shopping. They'd already been siphoning off my emergency fund for Vanessa's wedding expenses without even telling me. My blood didn't just boil, it raged. But I forced myself to think clearly. This wasn't the time for a purely emotional reaction. This was the time for setting firm, unbreakable boundaries. During my financial advisor training, I'd attended a seminar on financial abuse and exploitation. The instructor had been crystal clear. Once financial boundaries are violated, they must be reestablished decisively and completely. Half measures? They just invite further exploitation. I picked up my phone and called Robert, the manager at my bank branch. He'd become a real mentor to me over the years. "Carolyn," he greeted me warmly. "How's Dylan doing? I heard about his appendix." So at least someone in my broader family was paying attention to my crisis. I gave him a brief update on Dylan's recovery, then got straight to the point. "Robert, I need to make some serious changes to my accounts, particularly regarding authorized access. And I need your advice on the best way to handle this situation." I laid out everything. The joint emergency account, the unauthorized withdrawals, the current $10,000 demand. Robert listened, silently, without interrupting. "Unfortunately," he said when I finished, his voice tinged with regret, "this type of family financial entanglement is more common than you might think. But the good news is we can take steps immediately to protect your assets." With Robert's expert guidance, I spent the next hour crafting a comprehensive plan. First, I would freeze that joint emergency account. No more withdrawals without my in-person authorization. Second, I would establish a new, separate college fund for Dylan with ironclad protections. It would be impossible for anyone but him to access that money, and only for educational purposes. Third, I would meticulously document the entire history of financial requests and contributions, creating an undeniable record of their manipulative behavior. Fourth, and this was the kicker, I would send a token response, a clear statement, before they could even try to access the now frozen emergency fund again. "Are you sure about this last part?" Robert asked, a note of caution in his voice. "It might escalate the situation." "I'm sure," I said, my voice firm, resolute. "This has been building for years, Robert. If I don't make a clear statement now, nothing will ever change." After ending the call, a deep breath steadying me, I logged into my banking app. I initiated a $1 transfer to my sister's account. The memo line. I typed it out, every word deliberate, by a veil. "This is all you get after abandoning Dylan." Then, I completed the paperwork to freeze access to the emergency account and changed all the permissions. I transferred the remaining balance to a new account, solely in my name, leaving behind only a symbolic $100. And I set up Dylan's new educational trust with the strictest controls available. No one, not my parents, not Vanessa, not even me, would be able to withdraw that money for anything other than his educational expenses. It was now completely, irrevocably protected. As I worked, a strange mix of emotions swirled inside me. There was the burning anger, yes, but also a growing, powerful sense of empowerment. For years, I had passively accepted my assigned role in the family, the responsible one, the provider, the ever-present ATM. For the first time, I was actively taking control of my own financial boundaries and, by extension, reshaping my entire relationship with my family. I knew, absolutely knew, there would be backlash. My mother would cry, accusing me of selfishness. My father would make veiled threats about family loyalty. Vanessa would likely alternate between sweet-talking and vicious accusations. I'd seen this pattern before, every time I tried to set even minor boundaries. But this time would be different. This time, I had concrete protections in place. This time, I wasn't just thinking of myself, but of the example I was setting for Dylan. What kind of relationships did I want him to accept as normal? What kind of treatment did I want him to believe he truly deserved? As I finalized the last details, I heard Dylan calling for me from his bedroom. I closed my laptop, took another deep breath, and went to check on my son. Whatever storm was coming, I was prepared to weather it. For both our sakes. Monday morning arrived, just as I'd predicted. A storm. I'd just dropped Dylan off at school. He'd insisted he felt well enough, though I'd made arrangements for limited activity with his teacher, and walked into my office. My phone, already on silent, immediately exploded with notifications. 6 missed calls from my mother. 4 from my father. A staggering 12 text messages from Vanessa. 2 voicemails. I settled at my desk, took a fortifying breath, and steeled myself before checking the first voicemail. It was my mother, her voice high-pitched, tearful and utterly frantic. Caroline Elizabeth, what is the meaning of this $1? Is this some kind of joke? The boutique needs the deposit by noon today, or Vanessa loses the dress. Call me immediately. The second voicemail was even more unhinged. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this is your sister's future happiness at stake. We raised you better than this. Your father is furious. Fix this mistake right now. Vanessa's text messages? They ranged from initial confusion. Hey sis, there must be some mistake with the transfer. To sickly sweet-talking. Please, Caroline, you know how much this means to me. All the way to outright, venomous hostility. You have always been jealous of me. If you ruin this for me, I will never forgive you. I silenced my phone completely, trying, desperately, to focus on my work. But by 10:30, a soft knock came at my door. It was Lauren, my assistant. Caroline, your mother is here. She seems very upset. Should I send her in, or tell her you're in a meeting? I sighed. A deep, weary sigh. I'd expected this, but not quite so quickly. Send her in, please, Lauren, I said, my voice low. And Lauren, no interruptions for the next 20 minutes, regardless of what you might hear. My assistant nodded, her expression a mix of sympathy and intense curiosity. A moment later, my mother burst into the office. Her face was blotchy, streaked with tears, and contorted with anger. She didn't bother with a greeting. What have you done to the emergency account? She shrieked. Your father just tried to withdraw the money for Vanessa's dress deposit, and the teller said it was frozen. Then we discovered you emptied it except for $100. This isn't just your money, Carolyn. I remained seated, keeping my voice as calm and professional as I possibly could, despite the storm raging inside me. That account, Mom, was created by me for genuine emergencies. I stated, each word deliberate. Not for wedding dresses. And certainly not for the regular withdrawals you and Dad have been making without my knowledge or consent. We are your parents. We don't need your consent to use family money, she retorted, her voice shaking. It is not family money, Mom, I shot back, a flash of my simmering anger breaking through. It is my money. Money that I earned and set aside in case you or Dad ever faced a health crisis or some other true emergency. Over the past year, you've withdrawn nearly $4,000 in small amounts without once mentioning it to me. She waved her hand dismissively. Small expenses. Nothing worth bothering you about. But this dress is important, Caroline. The boutique won't hold it past noon. Vanessa is devastated. Dylan had emergency surgery last week, I said, my voice quiet, almost deadly calm. None of you bothered to visit him, or offer any meaningful support. He asked me if his grandparents were mad at him because they didn't come to the hospital. For a fleeting second, I saw a flicker of shame cross my mother's face. But it was gone just as quickly, replaced by righteous indignation. We were busy, and hospitals are depressing. We sent our love. A text message is not support, Mom. Being there for family during a crisis, that's support. A $10,000 wedding dress is not an emergency. My mother's voice rose, shrill and accusatory. I was actually grateful for my office's solid door. You have always been jealous of Vanessa, always trying to make her special moments about you. First, you refuse to help. Then, you send $1 as some kind of cruel joke. It wasn't a joke, Mom. It was a statement. I am done being the family ATM while receiving nothing but token attention in return. I have my own family to think about. Dylan. My priority is his well-being and future, not Vanessa's one-day princess fantasy. The argument escalated from there, her voice growing louder and louder until I was certain everyone on the entire floor could hear, despite the closed door. She brought up every perceived slight from my childhood, accused me of ingratitude for all the sacrifices they'd made for me, and eventually, she resorted to threats. If you don't fix this right now, you can consider yourself no longer part of this family. Something inside me went incredibly, eerily still at those words. Is that really how you measure family, Mom? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. By financial transactions? Because if withdrawing financial support means I'm not family, then what does it mean that none of you provided emotional support when Dylan was in surgery? Were you already not acting like family then? She had no answer for that. Instead, she grabbed her purse, stood up abruptly, and spat. This is not over. Your father will be calling you. You have until noon to make this right. As she stormed towards the door, she turned back, delivering a final venomous shot. And don't bother coming to Sunday dinner anymore if this is how you treat family. After she left, the silence in my office was deafening. I sat at my desk, shaking slightly, but feeling strangely, profoundly calm. I had expected the anger, the confrontation, but the raw reality of facing it head-on was still jarring. A few minutes later, Lauren poked her head in. Everything okay? I think the entire floor heard parts of that. I managed a weak smile. Family drama, Lauren. Nothing to worry about. But by lunchtime, things had escalated even further. My father called 4 more times. Each went straight to voicemail. Vanessa's texts became increasingly frantic, then abusive. I muted the conversation entirely. At 1:15, I received an unexpected call from Robert at the bank. Carolyn, he said, his tone urgent. I wanted to give you a heads up. Your parents just left my office. They were trying to override the freeze on the joint account, claiming it was an emergency situation and that you were having mental health issues, preventing you from making rational decisions. I gasped. They what? They also attempted to file a fraud report, he continued, claiming you had unlawfully transferred funds out of a joint account. I explained that as the primary account holder who created and primarily funded the account, you were well within your rights to make those changes. Oh, Robert. I sighed, my head in my hands. I appreciate the call. I'm so sorry you got dragged into this. No need to apologize, Carolyn. But I wanted you to know they may try other avenues. They mentioned possibly contacting your firm's management to discuss your concerning behavior. I thought you should be prepared. After thanking Robert again, my heart pounding with a fresh wave of indignation, I immediately marched straight to my supervisor's office. I needed to explain the situation before my parents could call with their false, manipulative claims about my mental stability. Nancy, my supervisor for the past 5 years, listened intently, her concern growing with every word. I had no idea you were dealing with this kind of family pressure, Carolyn, she said genuinely when I finished. If they do call, I will handle it appropriately, and if you need any time off to deal with this situation, just let me know. By the end of the workday, I'd received notice that my parents had attempted to make 3 separate withdrawals from the now-frozen emergency account. Each, thankfully, was declined by the system I had put in place. When I picked up Dylan from his after-school program, I was utterly exhausted from the emotional warfare, but a deep, unwavering resolve had set in. Something had to give, and for once it wouldn't be me. Tuesday evening, my phone rang. It was my father. I'd been ignoring their calls all day, but some gut feeling, told me to answer this one. Carolyn, he said, his voice tight, laced with barely controlled anger. We need to have a family meeting tonight. 7 o'clock. At our house. I can't tonight, Dad, I replied, my own voice calm. Dylan's still recovering, and I don't want to leave him with a sitter so soon after his surgery. Then bring him, he snapped. This needs to be resolved immediately. Is this about Vanessa's dress? I asked, my tone unwavering. Because my answer hasn't changed. This is about much more than the dress, he huffed. Now you've made serious accusations and taken actions that affect this entire family. 7 o'clock. He hung up without waiting for my response. I stood in my kitchen, utterly still, considering my options. I could refuse to go, but I knew that would only escalate the situation further. If this confrontation was truly inevitable, perhaps it was better to face it directly, and crucially on my terms. I called my neighbor, Miss Jenkins, a wonderful retired teacher who'd become a dear friend and occasional backup caregiver for Dylan. She readily agreed to watch him for a few hours, understanding immediately from my tone that this was important. "Take all the time you need, dear," she assured me gently. "Dylan and I will bake cookies and watch that space documentary he's been talking about." Before leaving, I gathered my armor, my documentation. I had a meticulously prepared spreadsheet detailing every single financial contribution I'd made to my family over the past decade, totaling more than $50,000. Bank statements proving the unauthorized withdrawals from the emergency account. Copies of text messages, a damning trail showing that they only contacted me when money was needed. Armed with this undeniable evidence and a steely resolve, I drove to my parents' house, the same split-level home where I'd grown up. As I parked in the driveway, I noticed Vanessa's car already there. And next to it, an unfamiliar, sleek luxury SUV. I guessed it belonged to her fiancé, Tyler. My mother answered the door without a greeting, just a tight-lipped stare, then turned and walked toward the living room where the others waited. My father was already in his usual recliner, the unspoken throne from which he delivered his authority during every family discussion since my childhood. Vanessa and a tall, impeccably dressed man, whom I assumed was Tyler, sat stiffly on the couch. Everyone looked up as I entered, their expressions a mix of anger, discomfort, and pure resentment. "Sit down, Carolyn," my father instructed, his voice a gravelly command, pointing to a single dining chair that had been deliberately placed opposite everyone else. The hot seat. I remained standing. My voice, when I spoke, was clear and steady. "Before we start, I want to be absolutely clear about something. I am here to discuss the pattern of financial and emotional exploitation that has characterized our family relationships for years. I am not here to be guilt, manipulated, or bullied into providing money for Vanessa's wedding." "Exploited!" Vanessa shrieked, jumping up, her face flushed crimson. "Are you serious right now? Just because I asked for help with my wedding dress." "This is not about just the dress, Vanessa," I countered, my gaze unwavering. "This is about years of one-sided support, about the undeniable fact that none of you showed up when Dylan was in surgery, and about the unauthorized withdrawals from the emergency account I established." "What unauthorized withdrawals?" Tyler spoke for the first time, looking genuinely confused. "What emergency account?" In that moment, I realized Vanessa's fiancé likely had no idea about the true financial dynamics of my family. This was immediately confirmed when my mother quickly interjected, her voice sharp. "That is not relevant to the current discussion. Tyler, we are here to talk about Caroline's refusal to help with wedding expenses." I addressed Tyler directly, ignoring my mother. "I created an emergency fund for my parents years ago. Without my knowledge, they have been making regular withdrawals from it, including funds for Vanessa's wedding preparations. When I discovered this and froze the account, they tried to claim to the bank manager that I was mentally unstable." Tyler's eyebrows shot up. He turned, a slow, disbelieving look towards Vanessa. "Is this true? You told me your sister refused to contribute to our wedding, not that your parents were already using her money without permission." Vanessa looked utterly trapped. "It's not like that. Mom and Dad said the account was for family needs, and the wedding is a family need," she stammered. $10,000 for a dress is not a need," I stated firmly, my voice cutting through her weak excuse. "And speaking of the dress, Tyler, did you know that was the amount being requested?" Tyler's expression darkened considerably. $10,000, he echoed, a dangerous edge in his voice. "Vanessa told me the dress budget was $2,000, which I already thought was excessive." The room fell into a stunned, horrified silence. My mother glared daggers at me for revealing this information, while Vanessa suddenly became very interested in her manicure. I calmly pulled out the folder of documentation I had brought. "I think it's time we put all the cards on the table," I announced. "This is a record of every financial contribution I have made to this family over the past 10 years. I handed copies to each person in the room, continuing to speak as they stared, wide-eyed, at the spreadsheet. $53,820. That includes helping with the refinance of his house, paying off Vanessa's credit card debt, twice, covering Dad's medical bills when he had pneumonia, and dozens of smaller loans that were never ever repaid. What it does not include is any record of emotional support flowing in the other direction. The room remained absolutely silent as they absorbed this devastating information. Tyler looked increasingly uncomfortable, darting uneasy glances at Vanessa and my parents. Last week, I continued, my voice steady, my 7-year-old son had emergency surgery. I called each of you, asking for support. Not money, just your presence. None of you showed up. Not once during his 3-day hospital stay. Dylan asked me if his grandparents were mad at him because they didn't visit. My mother actually had the grace, for a moment, to look ashamed. But my father? He just maintained his defensive posture. We explained why we couldn't come. You're making this into something it's not. Am I? I challenged, my voice rising slightly. Because 3 days after you couldn't be bothered to visit your grandson in the hospital, you demanded $10,000 for a wedding dress. How, exactly, should I interpret those priorities? I turned back to Tyler. Did you know about Dylan's surgery? He shook his head slowly, his eyes wide. No, he said, his voice quiet. I had no idea. Vanessa shot me a truly venomous look. Stop trying to make Tyler think badly of us, she shrieked. This is just your jealousy talking. You have always resented that Mom and Dad love me more. The room went absolutely, deadly quiet at her explosive outburst. The raw, brutal truth that had always been understood but never, ever spoken aloud hung heavy in the air between us. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. Vanessa, that is not true. We love both our daughters equally. But the damage was done. Tyler was now looking at his fiancée with completely new eyes, and my mother couldn't meet my gaze. I took a deep, fortifying breath and delivered the speech I had been preparing, mentally, since Sunday. Family means showing up for each other. It means celebrating successes and providing support during crisis. It means care flows in both directions, not just one way. 4 years, I have been the one expected to give, financially, emotionally, practically, while receiving token acknowledgement at best in return. That ends today. I am not cutting contact with this family. I am not saying I will never help in a genuine emergency. But I am establishing firm, non-negotiable boundaries. No more financial support without genuine relationship. No more one-sided giving. No more treating me like a convenient ATM while actively ignoring my son. I looked each of them directly in the eye before continuing. The money I have saved is for Dylan's future and our security. It is not available for designer wedding dresses or any other non-essential expenses. The emergency account will remain frozen until we have rebuilt trust, which, frankly, will take significant time and effort on all your parts. If you want a relationship with me, and with Dylan, you are welcome to it. But it must be based on mutual care and respect, not financial transactions. The choice is yours. I stood up, gathering my purse and the folder of documentation. No one spoke a single word as I walked toward the door. Just as my hand touched the doorknob, Tyler's voice stopped me. Caroline, he said, his voice quiet, sincere. I want to apologize. I had no idea about any of this, especially about your son's surgery. For what it's worth, I think you are absolutely right about family priorities. I nodded my thanks to him, noting Vanessa's utterly shocked expression, and left without another word. As I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in years. As if a crushing burden I'd carried for so long I'd forgotten it was there had finally, miraculously, been lifted from my shoulders. 2 months have passed since that monumental showdown in my parents' living room, and let me tell you, so much has changed. Dylan has fully recovered from his surgery, thank goodness. He's back to his energetic, bike riding, elaborate Lego structure building self. The physical healing was straightforward, almost easy, but the emotional landscape, that's been far more complicated. For the first 3 weeks after the confrontation, there was absolute, deafening silence from my family. No calls, no texts, not even the usual passive-aggressive social media interactions. I used that time to truly focus on Dylan and myself, establishing new routines and priorities. It was such a relief, honestly, to be free from the constant, gnawing background anxiety of anticipating the next financial request. I also started seeing a therapist, Dr. Morgan, who specializes in family dynamics and boundary setting. Our weekly sessions have been invaluable, helping me recognize insidious patterns I had normalized for so long. The subtle manipulation techniques, the emotional withholding, the implied obligations that were never, ever reciprocated. What you are describing is a classic family system with rigid roles, Dr. Morgan explained during an early session. You were assigned the role of provider and fixer, while your sister was given the role of being taken care of. Breaking out of these roles threatens the entire system, which is why the backlash was so severe. With her guidance, I've been working on maintaining my boundaries, fiercely, while also processing the very real grief of losing the family relationship I had always desperately hoped for, but never truly had. It hasn't been easy. Not at all. But it has been absolutely necessary. The financial freedom, honestly, has been unexpectedly liberating. Without the constant drain of manufactured family emergencies, I've been able to do things I never thought possible. I planned a summer vacation for Dylan and me, our first real vacation that wasn't just visiting relatives. We're going to a beach resort, with swimming pools and kids' activities. Dylan talks about it constantly, his excitement a daily reminder that I made the right decision. I also started the home renovation project I'd been postponing for years. Nothing extravagant, just updating our worn kitchen cabinets and replacing the stained carpet in the living room with beautiful hardwood floors. It's about creating a home that feels truly ours, not just a place we inhabit between work and school. The first crack in the family silence came 6 weeks after our confrontation. A letter arrived. Not an email, not a text, but an actual, handwritten letter from Vanessa. I sat on my back porch with a cup of tea, bracing myself before opening it. Dear Carolyn, it began. Tyler and I have postponed our wedding. After our family meeting, he had a lot of questions about our financial situation and expectations. We've been having long talks about priorities and values that haven't always been comfortable. She went on to acknowledge, albeit somewhat grudgingly, that she had been oblivious to Dylan's surgery and health challenges. I realize I haven't been the kind of aunt I should have been, she wrote. I can't change the past, but I'm trying to think more about how my choices affect others. It wasn't exactly a profound apology, no, but coming from Vanessa, it was significant. She closed by saying she wasn't asking for anything, just opening a door to possibly rebuild some kind of relationship in the future. I wrote back a brief, polite note, thanking her for the letter and expressing hope that her conversations with Tyler would lead to a stronger foundation for their marriage. I didn't rush to forgive or pretend everything was suddenly resolved, but I did leave the door open a crack. A week after that exchange, a birthday card arrived for Dylan from my parents. Inside was a gift certificate to a local toy store and a note saying they'd like to take him out for ice cream sometime, if that would be okay with me. No demands, no guilt trips, just a small olive branch. I showed it to Dylan, who was ecstatic about both the gift card and the ice cream offer. Can I see Grandma and Grandpa? He asked, his eyes hopeful. We'll see, buddy, I told him. Maybe we can meet them for ice cream next weekend. Just for a little while. I am proceeding cautiously, incredibly cautiously, with these tentative reconnections. Dr. Morgan has helped me develop a framework for limited, controlled interactions that allow me to test whether real change is possible without exposing myself or Dylan to further harm. Meanwhile, I've been building a different kind of support system. My work friends. They've become more like real friends since I shared some of what I was going through. 2 colleagues, and I now have a standing monthly dinner date where we take turns watching each other's children. And Miss Jenkins from next door has become something of a surrogate grandmother to Dylan. She takes him gardening in her backyard and has been teaching him to bake. He proudly brought home chocolate chip cookies last week that they had made together, saving the biggest one for me. Dylan himself has shown remarkable resilience through all of this. Children are so perceptive, aren't they? He knew something was wrong with our family dynamics long before I explicitly addressed it. Recently, as I was tucking him in, he asked a question that truly caught me off guard. Mommy, is it okay not to give someone something, even if they really want it? I sat on the edge of his bed, carefully, considering how to respond. Yes, buddy, I said softly. It is absolutely okay to say no, even to people you care about, if what they're asking for isn't right for you to give. Why do you ask? Joey at school wanted me to give him my new action figure, and he said, Best friends always share everything, he explained. But I didn't want to give it to him because it was special to me. Was that okay? I hugged him close. That was absolutely okay, sweetheart. Real friendship isn't about taking things from each other. It's about respecting each other and caring about each other's feelings. He nodded seriously. That's what I thought. I told Joey we could play with it together at recess, but it would stay my toy. He got mad at first, but then he was okay. In that moment, a wave of profound understanding washed over me. My son, my incredible 7-year-old son, was already learning the lesson it had taken me 34 painful years to grasp. Healthy relationships require boundaries. And love without respect. That's not really love at all. The journey ahead won't be easy, I know that. Family patterns don't change overnight, and there may be more confrontations and difficult conversations to come. But for the very first time in my adult life, I feel truly free. Free to define my own worth outside of my utility to others. I am building a life based on genuine connection rather than obligation, and showing Dylan what healthy relationships really look like. The money I once might have sent for Vanessa's wedding dress is now securely in Dylan's college fund. The emotional energy I once spent desperately managing my family's crises is now invested in building a joyful life with my son and nurturing friendships that flow both ways. Sometimes, the most profound act of love isn't giving people what they ask for, but showing them exactly where the boundaries must stand. Money cannot buy family loyalty, but protecting your peace? That, my friends, is truly priceless. Now, I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this whole situation. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who were taking advantage of you? How did you handle it? What worked, what didn't? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to hear from you. And if my story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult family situations. Maybe even share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize their own well-being. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, you deserve relationships that add to your life, not drain it.